So what will you do when the party's over? So what will you do when the party's over?
Hey, welcome to Third Man in the Ring. I'm your host, Popeye Ray. Today I got an awesome interview. A lot of you know that I'm a Teamster from the local 63. I've been a Teamster since 1994. Now some of you guys might be pro-union, non-union, but let me tell you, I've been blessed, bro. I've been blessed. But I thought to myself, who better to interview than the Secretary-Treasurer of my local 63? Not to mention, just a solid man, and I like to use the word integrity. A solid man that just has an open heart, firm, as a referee would say, firm but fair. I want you to give a warm welcome to my friend, your friend, Randy Cammack. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Ray. It's an honor for me to be here. You know, I've watched a number of your podcasts over the years, and you do an excellent job of bringing out the message, you know, about boxing. And, you know, I've followed boxing in my younger days.
Big boxing fan.
Oh, yeah. We used to go to the Olympic Auditorium regularly. And with Eileen Eaton and, you know, Danny,
Little Red
Indian
Lopez.
Red Lopez.
Yes.
And you know, there was great fighters in that period of time. And I really miss that. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's the old school days.
A real serious interest in boxing, and to this day, you know, we still, you know, our locals proud to support a number of youth boxing clubs, the Teamsters Youth Boxing in South Omani.
Yeah.
I've been a proud supporter of that for probably 20 years. And,
I think even more, Randy. I think even more.
Yeah, it could be a little bit more. You know, I'm getting old, so I don't always get it exactly right.
Hey, we both.
And we've got a high desert boxing club here in the upper desert. A group from Staters has had that club for quite a while, and some great kids. It's, you know, not about winning or losing. That's what about youth boxing is about: participating, learning, sportsmanship.
Yeah.
You know, so there's no winners, no losers. You know, it's that pride of competing and camaraderie with the fellow boxers. And, you know, on my wall, I've got a young man that went to the Olympics.
Yes.
That fought out of
the great Joe Diaz.
Those are his boxing shorts right there on the wall.
You'll see it on the split screen right now, guys.
Yeah, it's you know, we're proud to have that hanging there. We got an award from the WBC that you presented to me some years ago.
Yes.
But you know, Teamsters is a diverse organization, and you know, I'm proud of the fact that I've been a Teamster for going on 58 years. I've been in some kind of leadership role for the last 45. You know, it's
and an awesome leader at that.
No, thanks, Ray. I appreciate that.
Firm but fair. Sometimes he'll give you a chin check, but he's always came through. And that's why, again, guys, I always said, you know what, Randy Cammack, that's the best start right there. But you know what, Randy, before we get started, before we get into it more, tell the fans, where'd you grow up at?
Well, I was actually born in Pasadena. During World War II. I was one of those war babies.
Oh,
and,
came home and took care of business, huh?
I ended up having 6 brothers. We grew up mostly in Azusa, California. And it was a great community, mostly a Hispanic community. I was like a white vato back in those days. I had my khaki pants.
I was just going to say, I heard you wearing khakis, right?
You know, it's great. I'm still friends with a few people there that I went to school with. Not many still alive, but you know, a lot of memories go back to those days. You know, my interest in the Teamsters goes back to my grandfather was a Teamster in the late 30s and early 40s, and belonged to Local 542 in San Diego. And in their lobby, they have on display my grandfather's buttons, his ledger card.
Oh, wow.
Got them in a glass case as you walk in the front door. So, and then my dad also, he was an organizer for the Teamsters for a short period of time. Worked with Jim Easley and Gunnar Hansen, and belonged to Local 578, which now is 986, I believe. So going back, those kind of things kind of
So
provided an interest.
Is it fair to say, Randy, it's in your blood? Is it in your blood, from grandfather to dad to now you?
Yeah, so that's, my grandfather was always very quiet. It wasn't until he actually passed away that we found all these cards and membership stuff, and my grandmother talked a great deal about how proud he was to be a Teamster, and was really. I found that after actually later in years that how devoted he was to labor union. He belonged to the carpenters for a while. But that, kind of got me. I grew up in Azusa, ended up going in the Air Force and being stationed in Texas, Tripoli, Libya for 2 years.
So wow, Randy not only serves the Union, he served our country. And that in itself, I have 2 sons that were in the military, and I'm just totally pro-military,
Yeah, it was interesting being in Libya, because at that time, before Gaddafi took over, it was a kingdom. King Idris was the leader of Libya. So I was stationed there for 2 years. I went to Spain for 6 months, traveled all over Europe as a young 18, 19-year-old GI. It was really exciting to go places you could never think of.
Yeah, you never even thought about
going to. Actually, Muammar Gaddafi worked on the base when I was there. He was a houseboy.
Wow.
And those were good jobs, working on American base in a country like that. Those were good jobs. And a friend of mine has a picture of us with Gaddafi. This is before
not knowing what he would become, huh?
He was a young man. Then he went on later to go to college, came back and got in the military, and actually overthrew the king, and he became the leader.
Yeah.
So I told my buddy, throw that picture away. I'll have the FBI up my ass.
Exactly.
And excuse my term, but it was interesting. Because I love the opportunity to talk about my past. It's knowing other people have had similar experiences.
Yeah.
There I went to Vietnam for a while. I was at Da Nang Air Base, and then back to Vandenberg Air Force Base, where I finally spent my last year or so before I got out, and then came back.
Those were some heavy years during the Vietnam era, no?
Yeah, that's why I left.
Yeah.
It was before, this was 1963. This was before. But it was still a military action back then.
And it was escalating at the time,
My buddy says, you got to get, because when you're in a remote base like Libya, you get a choice of where you want to go, because it's considered, you get a choice of preference. So I went over there on temporary duty and decided, I don't really want to be here, so I went back to Vandenberg. And, but I got some good buddies that ended up dying over there, because they stayed. And became lifers in the service, which that's something I didn't want to do. And after that, I got out and went to college, because I'd actually got kicked out of high school for fighting when I was at Azusa High School. I had 6 brothers, all of us. There was 5 of the 6 were all kicked out of high school, one right after the other, all for fighting, doing stupid shit. And my other brothers went back. I didn't. I went through the military and got a GED. Then when I got out and went to college, I got more credits. Went to college for 5 years at night. I was thankful for the opportunity, because the GI Bill paid for all that. And then I started going to LA Trade Tech to find out about labor, and got a serious interest in the intricacies of and the rewards that only you can feel inside. It's the kind of job representing people that there's not always a lot of thank you, but you always have a good feeling when you help somebody who was fired and get their job back, or get somebody.
Let me interrupt. I got fired, and you know what? Randy got me my job back through my business agent. And you know what? That was my livelihood, guys. That was my livelihood. Now imagine if I wasn't a union member. You know what I mean?
Well, that was, that's the reward. That not often people will say that we appreciate what you did, but it's that reward that you have to have that feeling that you did something good, even though sometimes people don't appreciate it.
Yeah, it's sad, but
if you're here representing people and expecting, a reward every
True.
time you do.
True.
You can't. But the long term is, it's got to be something that you feel compassionate about and care enough about people to want to do this. And, we're thankful years later, I know I'm kind of maybe belaboring my history, but years later I got out of the service and my brother and I went down and applied at LAPD because we heard they were looking for people, ex-military people. So my brother and I went down and they turned me down for being colorblind. And
Wow.
I told this story. And I had no idea I was colorblind. So I got kicked back and I went to work for UPS in 1967 in downtown Los Angeles, local 396. And my brother ended up going to work for the Covina Police Department and then went to work for LAPD where he stayed 40 years. But anyway, after the Watts riot, I got a call from LAPD saying, you know what, you're being colorblind may not be such a bad thing.
That's a good one.
It was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we need some colorblind people.
Yeah.
I said, no, I'm not interested. At that time,
Well, let me say, thank God he wasn't accepted at LAPD. Because look at where he's at today,
Well, at that time, LAPD didn't pay as much as UPS did. I think
Oh, wow.
I started at UPS with like $5 an hour.
Wow.
67, $5 an hour was a lot. The minimum wage was like $2 or something, $3. It was real small.
Now, were they union already back then?
Yeah.
UPS?
Oh yeah, they've been unions since
From
the
day
early 1900s. Been
Oh,
union.
wow.
And they started in 1907. They became union. I'm not sure, a few years after that. Been there a long time. So anyway, I stayed on with UPS. I drove downtown Los Angeles and transferred out to Pomona. And then they decided to close, so they talked me into going into management for a while, which I didn't want to drive back and forth to Los Angeles, so I had a chance to stay here and work out of Anaheim. And I went through, I was an industrial engineer for a while, became a center manager, and just then a year and a half, only there a year and a half. And then became a division manager. Right after that, the guys that actually worked for me in Riverside went to the union and said, we'd like to have you hire our boss. This is unheard of. But the union wouldn't hire a guy from upper management. And so they went down and said, hey, we'll support you in the next election, but we want to pick our BA. And so the guys won. Guy, maybe Ted Wilson, he won. And they called me up. Said, hey, and here I was thinking, my heart's not in this. Managing people, it's not where my heart's at. And it just didn't fit.
You weren't feeling it,
couldn't deal with having to fire people or, discipline people. That's just not something
It's not your
makes me
character.
warm and fuzzy. So they offered me a job at the local in 1980, and there was a lot of bullshit about it. Hiring a guy from management, the first membership meeting was really interesting. The guys from UPS that wanted me there all showed up and said, no, this guy's the best guy you could possibly have. And
then that should say what kind of manager you were. You know what I mean? You were fair.
Try to just be fair with people,
Yeah.
like I do now. And, that doesn't always come out the way you want it to. Not everybody sees the good that you try to do. Sometimes it's misinterpreted or, it's not, nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. And I've certainly made some mistakes over the years, but, I feel good about, if somebody comes up to me and said, you represented, and there's a lot of that because I've been here for 45 years and get a position here at the local, almost 58 years as a Teamster.
Wow.
People come up to me and said, you represented my dad or my grandfather. Some kind of, as a kid just retired, a feeder driver at UPS, Mark Ramirez, and I represented his mother. I'm now representing his son, third generation,
Wow.
and his daughter works there too. So, And it's just, people come and say, God, my dad talks about it, my grandpa. I says, oh shit, I'm getting old. When grandparents are saying, oh, I know Randy Cammack, but back then.
Yeah.
That's makes it all worthwhile. To see people come up and say, thanks for what you did for my dad. I had a guy here a couple of weeks ago came in, and Ken Haralo's son.
Yeah, I know.
Who I hadn't seen for a while. Ken Haralo used to be our president. He passed away 4 or 5 years ago.
Ugly
we had a
cancer.
picture of him on the wall. He hadn't seen it. He came in, he saw that picture. We were honoring his father. He broke down in tears. And he's about 50 years old. He said, man, it's too much, but that meant so much to me.
Yeah,
People say, why do you have his picture up there?
You could have easily just took it down after he passed.
Because we loved the members. Before him was Bob Molina, who is actually buried in our private park that we have for members to use on the weekend. And that's where he wanted to be buried. He loved the members so much. I want to be buried in the park, our private park. But it's been interesting, rewarding, and people in the labor movement, they get a lot of criticism. They're thugs and gangsters. And, at one time people had to make some tough decisions about how to deal with tough employers.
And with that said, Randy, yes, in the early years, to fight the brutality that we were getting from management back in the 40s, so the Irishman. Let's talk about the Irishman. In what detail do you think that's accurate? The Irishman. Have you seen The Irishman?
Oh yeah, a couple of times.
I myself too have seen it. And you know what? From what I interpreted, Hoffa hired these mobsters for the simple fact just to, protect us from the thugs they were hiring to beat on our labor people that were just trying to get a fair shake.
Yeah, he made a deal with the devil, but those...
They're a perfect way of saying it. He made a deal with the devil.
When I first started in '67, Jim Hoffa was the general president. About 6 months later, he went to prison, and so I got really interested in, his legacy and the things that he did. He was a hands-on, man's man.
As you are too.
Not a big guy, but he was a guy that people respected because what he did was from his heart. Now, you make bad decisions like we all do sometimes.
Exactly.
But those were times where employers were hiring thugs, the cops were on their payroll, and if you had a strike, people were beaten up with clubs, and they were hiring thugs. And so he tried to deal with that kind of a thing, and once not realizing, I think he didn't realize that once you make a deal with the devil, they're going to haunt you forever. They own you.
There's an old saying where I grew up in Bassett, down the street from you. You make a deal with them, you ask a favor of them, they want 20, 30 favors back.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, like Mr. Cammack said, he made a deal with the devil, but it worked out in the long run. And now as we speak, 2025, May 6th, the federal, they keep an eye on us, right?
We've been, because of some of that history, the federal government has been, we've been in a consent decree oversight by the federal government for the last 20 years or longer. And, all those kind of people that originally were there are all gone. People make mistakes now, and they're kind of in a nitpicking thing, but that's, our past was troubled, to say the least.
Yeah.
And, people did stupid things, and, as people do. In the corporate world, the same kind of stuff happens.
Exactly.
But it's kind of like, oh, well, that's, they move on. The labor unions, we're under attack because we represent people who make their lives better. And employers don't like that because it costs them money. It takes a little bit out of their pocket to bring their employees, their workers, up to a higher standard of living, where they have health care, where they have a pension. I tasted a little bit when I first became involved in a national leadership role, because I spent 15 years as an international vice president. So I got to interact with a lot of people that were, including the individual that the Irishman was really about. You know, the guy who supposedly claimed that he killed Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah.
Well, that was all connected. And some of the people that I won't mention the names, but were on the executive board when I first went on. When Hoffa's son got elected, he was a totally different person, not a hands-on type of guy, but more of a political strategist.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. Even though I didn't know Mr. Hoffa himself, the senior, I noticed that with Junior, you know. But the reason I bring that up, Randy, is because this is the haters. Oh, well, the union guys get paid too much, the union guys drive nice cars. And I tell them, well, would it make you feel better when you call your business agent and he calls back and says, hey, bro, I'm trying to find a ride to get over there. You know what, I'm trying to pay my gas bill right now. I'll get to you next week. Or, you know what, bro, my car broke down. I can't afford the carburetor right now. Would that make you happy? You know what? I see my business, this is me, Ray Corona talking, I see my business agent as my back pocket attorney at work. I really do. And if they are paid decent wages, more power to them, man. More power to them. But why some of these people, and even some of our members, well, why do they have this? Why do they have that? What do you want them to do? You want them to take a bus to go see us at work? Do you want them to get an Uber? Or what will make you happy? And this is why I say, when I worked for Local 63 as a temporary organizer, and Mr. Cammack held us accountable for every penny spent. We had to hand in receipts. I'm sure it's like that still, right?
Yeah, we've come a long ways. And I first went to work for Local. This is a funny story. I gave up a job as a division manager at UPS Stock. I'd be a multimillionaire if I stayed. Wouldn't have been happy, but I'd been rich.
That's right.
Not rich
you wouldn't
today,
have been happy, but you've been rich.
I'm comfortable that my life has been useful in helping people get a step up. Doesn't always work out the way we want it to, but most of the time we've made some great achievements for working people.
That's right.
Not every time you win, but more often than not, we do. I got to tell you something. When I first went to work, my first day on the job, we're raided by the FBI.
Welcome to Teamsters.
I thought, well, shit, what did I do? Gave up what could have been a great job to come work for the union. And the first day, I said, man, I'm not going to be here long. I picture myself being let off in chains or something. And it turns out the prior administration had done some bullshit, blowing up trucks. And some of that stuff carried on for years. People got stupid. But it all worked out. They didn't really want us. They were looking for the guys from before. They all got arrested.
And with that said,
so that was a hell of a scary start.
That goes to show
personally.
You're not covering up. You're not hiding. Some of these officials were arrested. Am I right?
Yeah.
So we're held accountable. Randy Cammack's held accountable. Everybody is held accountable. And this is why I say to the haters of union, but are still union members, think, guys, if you didn't have the union, where would you be today? Where would you be today, guys? The pros totally outweigh the negatives. And to be honest, I don't see any negative in it. Some people get upset that they have to pay union dues. Well, what? Again, do you want Randy to be hitchhiking to go to a meeting? You know, he's got to get paid just like the next guy, guys. You eat, he eats. It's just the way life is, guys. But this is why I say, Randy, how do you feel about our members that complain but don't get involved with the union, don't come to our meetings?
Well, you know, there's a certain number of people just are like that, and they're not going to be satisfied. You know, sometimes people take things for granted. You know, the folks that came before us that gave us the 8-hour day, paid holidays, insurance, and all that. So some folks died for that. They gave their lives. You know, things that people accept, paid vacations, paid sick leave.
The union.
You know, safety conditions that people have in the workplace. A lot of folks take that for granted, that they don't realize the sacrifices that others have made. Some, You know, and I could think back in strikes. There was a strike in 1970, a Wildcat, over a benefit for freight workers. And after that strike, a lot of those people that were on strike were blackballed, were never allowed to work in the industry again. Some went to jail. But they were fighting not for personal gain, but for the benefit of their coworkers or people working in that industry. And you know, God bless them that made those kind of sacrifices over the years. Whenever we have a strike, somebody gets arrested. Cops have no sense of humor. If there's any watching, you know, that, you know, there's good cops, but sometimes they don't understand the struggle that working people have with their employers. And, you know, we have a strike going on right now this morning in Victorville with Keurig, Snapple, 7-Up.
7-Up, yeah.
A huge strike up and right off the 15 freeway in Victorville. Had a bunch of people up there this morning.
Yeah.
In the next room, we're negotiating with Bimbo Bakeries for all the bakeries in Southern California that handle and distribute Bimbo products. And, you know, it's a struggle, it's a constant struggle.
Constant fight.
Company owned by a corporate organization in Mexico. A lot of that product comes up from Mexico and stuff. You know, it's an ongoing battle, but it's a good fight. You know, it's a fight worth having always. You know, that's why there's so many things happening to try to destroy and weaken labor unions. There's a reason for that. It's because they're afraid we're going to make somebody's life better, and it's going to cost an employer or a corporation more money. And if you look at some of the most unionized companies, UPS, for example, they've made billions every year, in spite of the fact they're pretty much 100% union. And they're still making money. So the argument that put people out of business, we certainly haven't put UPS out of business.
Thank you.
Might have taken a little bit out of their pocket, but it went in the workers' pocket instead. Yeah, you know, I missed something earlier. I was talking about my relationship with boxing. It was about my dad.
Yeah, check this out, guys.
My dad, he bragged his whole life. You know, he was a World War II Coast Guard. And he was stationed originally in Manhattan and New York. And, in fact, my mom was there with him. And she was pregnant at the time with me. And he had the opportunity, Jack Dempsey, who had long since retired from boxing, was still a celebrity in the boxing world and still is today.
Still is today.
And he became a lieutenant commander and was in charge of training there in Manhattan. And my dad and him became friends. And, you know, everybody loved Jack Dempsey back then. He was the hero of heroes.
He was the Ali of those days.
Yeah, it was so my dad was kind of a pug, and they had a chance to do an exhibition boxing match with Jack Dempsey. And it was the greatest thing, his achievement in his whole life. He was a tough guy. He always used to tell, I had 6 brothers, he said, "You guys can hit me as hard as you want, and it won't hurt me." And one time when I was young, I must have been like 10, my dad was bragging, my other brother hit him in the stomach, and he just laughed. So my shot at the stomach missed the stomach. I hit him right in the nuts. And my dad went down. He said, "That's not my stomach." He laughed about that for years. He said, "The only person ever knocked me down was my kid."
That's great memories though, huh, Randy?
Oh, yeah,
with your dad, you know what I mean? And who could actually say they put on the gloves with Jack Dempsey? You know what I mean? Who could actually say they put on the gloves with Jack Dempsey, whether it's exhibition or not? I mean, if Canelo said, "Hey, Ray, let's spar," he'd probably take me out with one arm, but just to say I sparred with Canelo. So imagine to spar with Jack Dempsey. This man went down in history. He's a legend, you know? And that his character, I didn't know Mr. Cammack, but his character actually came down to his son, Randy Cammack. Because the fight in you, I've known you since '94, and you've been a fighter. You've been a fighter, fighting for the cause.
Different kind of fighters. Fighting we do is a little different than physical. even though sometimes we might get, the old guys get
You
sucked
said you said it first. Yeah.
sucked into a situation, because, some of these union busters they used to hire
Yeah.
would come out and actually try to provoke you while the cameras are running, provoke you into, spit on you, talk about your mom, or, things that might incite somebody to do something physical. And so there were always those times back when I first started.
Now that I'm not working for you, I was the one trying to provoke them. I'll be honest.
It sometimes goes both ways, but
I was trying to provoke
they just
them.
try to provoke you, get the cops to arrest you because you took a swing at somebody, or get you kicked off the picket line, or get an injunction.
Yeah, you would tell us no fighting, guys, no fighting. But sometimes it was hard to avoid it, And you know what? On that note, I want to address that. Shame on some of you union busters. These are ex-Teamsters. How they could lay their head on the pillow, shame on you. Shame on you. What could you possibly say to a man that wants a better life? What could you possibly say about the union? And especially, a lot of you are getting pensions from the union. Shame on you, bro. Shame on you. But that's for another story. But one thing Randy Corrigan had told me one time, well, he gave us a flyer, and it was a well-dressed guy in a suit in a nice Lamborghini, and there was a guy there digging a hole. It was a black kid and a white kid digging a hole, and the black kid tells the boss, it was the boss, "Hey man, that's a nice car, boss." And the boss replied, "Hey, you keep working the extra hours and I'm gonna get another new one next year." You know what I mean? That's why it's called corporate greed, guys. Hey, more power to the guy that starts his own business and becomes wealthy. But there's nothing wrong with sharing with your employees, because your employees are the rock of your foundation, the rock that made you who you are. You know what I mean? And this is what the Teamsters are all about, guys, fighting for a better life for you and me.
Hi everyone, Andy Sarukian here, co-founding partner of Remedy Law Group. We represent employees in all types of employment cases, whether it's wrongful termination, discrimination, harassment, retaliation, failure to pay wages, provide meal or rest breaks, misclassification. Website is www.remedylawgroup.com. Give us a call. My number is 818-422-5941. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Free consultation about any potential case. Look forward to hearing from you.
Hey guys, Sonora Tires, 17977 Valley Boulevard in Bloomington, California. They do tires, mufflers, brakes, alignments, air conditioning. I've known Armando for almost 12 years. Him and his son do great business there, reasonable prices. So check them out, Sonora Tires. Tell them Popeye Ray sent you. Let me ask you, Randy, if that guy listening right now, watching the podcast that isn't union but is thinking, why do you think he needs a union? If they asked you, why do you think we need a union?
Well, it's pretty basic. When you talk about the basic needs of working people, is somehow be able to have a decent home, be able to provide for your family, hopefully send your kids through college, and have a life that's, not luxurious, but to be able to have a decent living for yourself, for your family, and for your kids, and that you'd be able to leave something behind. And it's difficult in today's world for young people. Housing costs so much, rent, $2,500, $300. I got my grandkids are paying like $4,000 a month for an apartment.
That's crazy, man.
They can barely, there's nothing else they can do. You can hardly go to the store, when it's, that's on the high end. It's very difficult. So when we're talking to employers about, you need to give them a raise, what you're paying them's not enough for people to survive on. Cost of housing, rent, own. It's difficult for young people to buy a home. So they have to have a basic standard of living that would provide for them. They at least have the opportunity. The American dream is about that.
Exactly.
The American dream is very difficult anymore, and that's why there's such a concerted effort. The National Right to Work, which is almost every employer in the world contributes to it, to try to destroy unions a little bit at a time. The Supreme Court, the Janus decision, with the right to work in the public sector a few years ago, hoping it would destroy unions. It didn't. In fact, it increased membership in a lot of unions, a lot of public sector unions. And they'd like to pass a national right to work, which may fly out. It gets put in a congressional hearing every year. It comes back every year. But fortunately, we've had
So that's a
people
constant fight then, huh?
Oh yeah, it's a, it's such, those things. It's just an ongoing, constant struggle.
And not to mention, Randy, I'm blessed. I have a pension. How many jobs can you actually say have a pension? Yeah, you could have a 401k, and that's all good. But tell me if I'm wrong, Randy. A 401k, when the economy's going up and down, that suffers, no?
Yeah, it all depends on how you invest in it. But our pension, the Western Conference pension, which covers most of the people in the Western United States that are Teamsters, that have the Teamster plan, is solid. It's been 100% funded at like $36 billion. And it provides for people to have an opportunity. Some folks on the high end are retiring as much as $7,000 or $8,000 a month.
Yes.
Not all of them, depending on the amount of contribution that goes into the plan.
My brother Romero Alonso got an awesome pension, and he retired. Great pension.
Yeah, it's it can not only when you're working, but when you retire, you don't have to live in poverty.
Yeah,
you can
thank
have
you.
a decent living and
you.
enjoy your senior years, which
Instead
I plan
of worrying.
to do. I plan to do sometime.
I know, Randy. Yeah. Soon. I hope you do it when you want. When you want on your terms.
Well, I don't know what. I don't have any hobbies. I just turned 82 years old, and I love what I do. Not too many people have the opportunity to say, I love what I do. I love going to work. I have the opportunity to help somebody to get that feeling that's more rewarding than money by any means. Not that I'm underpaid by any means, but it's just a special feeling. I don't ask people, how many people really feel good about the work that they do? And that's special, And
this is where I want to say, guys, I grew up in Bassett, very gang infested, same as Azusa. South Almani's probably even worse. And Randy has taken care of, Randy and Local 63, through Randy's leadership, has taken care of the city of South Almani with all kinds of financial funds, jackets for the club. And you know what? I know Ben Lira really appreciates that. I know the kids appreciate that. You're talking about kids from 8 years old to 25. You go over there to South Almani, they know Randy Cammack. They know Teamsters. And this is why I say, guys, Randy, and again, integrity. And that's what I really want to say, integrity. That's why I thought to myself, he's a perfect candidate for my show as a positive testimony of his life, And I'm not just blowing smoke, Randy. I could have went to anywhere else, but that's my true feelings, Not to mention he took care of my son, Adrian Corona, 14-1, 3 knockouts. Jojo Diaz went to the Olympics. He's had a great career. I think he's got one more fight coming up. And you know what? If you're right, Randy's always there for you. If you have the right intention, he's always there for you, As well as Local 63. So where do you see yourself right now, Randy, in the future? I know you said you might retire, you might not. What do you want for Local 63? Let me ask you that.
Well, I'm going to try to make it to 60 years.
Oh, yeah, awesome.
So about 3 more years probably, maybe.
Yeah.
All depends on
God willing, God willing, yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, I feel good about what I do. And the members get tired of me, they can kick my ass out. But
they don't.
They haven't yet in 45 years.
Let me speak on that, Randy. Randy doesn't just continue, he has to be voted in. And he's won every year. Props. That says a lot, guys. That says a lot. Because if you weren't doing the right thing, if you weren't doing for your members, for the Teamster in general, they just voted him out. So, but you're going to try to go to 60 years, and then what do you plan to do? Just kick back by the pool?
Maybe.
Do you still have your bike, Randy? Do you still
No,
have
I
your
don't.
Harley? The wife won't let you do that no more, huh?
I had to sell a motorcycle. I got riding Harley Davidsons most
Yeah,
of my
Randy
life.
was riding his bike out here, man.
Yeah, I know.
I know Mrs. Cammack didn't like that, huh?
My wife said one of the fat boys in our house has to go. So I figured it was either me or the bike.
Or the bike, huh?
And then, you know, I think about it. It's like losing your best friend.
Yeah.
The bike. I put a lot of money in it. Game.
It was a beautiful bike. I've
was
seen it a couple times.
Oh yeah, I put a lot of money on that thing. And the one before that I had was the same way. And the one before that, it's like losing your best friend. When you're selling, you felt like
Like,
you
what
know,
they just
lose
took a
something
finger?
that you become connected to.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, it's like riding because the camaraderie and motorcycle association and clubs, not necessarily gangs, but clubs.
Yeah, clubs.
That, you know, that there's a special feeling and people ride together, you look out for each other. You develop a friendship that carries on. I belonged to a number of Teamster horsemen for a long time.
Yeah.
I still belong to Teamster. I have a lifetime membership, Teamster Thunder.
I seen the jacket they gave you a couple years back.
yeah.
That nice leather jacket.
Yeah,
that was beautiful.
The cut. They call it. It's a cut.
No, a cut. All right.
The biker world,
That's
they call
the
it that's
biker
a cut.
The biker talk there. I'm not familiar with it, but yeah. So hey, Randy, what do you think? What do you think about the Teamsters in general today, 2025? Are we still strong? Are we struggling? You know, I'm being honest, guys. Are we treading water? Or are we still in the fight?
No, I think there's some new leadership at our international who's, again, hands-on. Spend a couple days a week out in the membership for a national president to do that. So that's a new standard for what people should be doing.
I want you on my podcast, sir, President. I want him on there, but yeah, he's really hands-on.
Yeah, Sean O'Brien.
Sean O'Brien.
I sat on the international board with him for a long time, and he's a young man who's got the Hoffa way of doing things. He's very much
the senior Hoffa, right?
You know, I've been through 6 Teamster general presidents in my career, and I've seen the different ways. Everyone's different. Sean O'Brien's the most hands-on that I have ever seen. Hoffa, Junior, they called, really not Junior, because James R. was the original Hoffa, and then his kid that called him Junior, but he wasn't. It wasn't hands-on, you know, and none of the others were, but we're really out and interacts regularly with the members. And it's a great thing to see that. It's kind of like somebody young, aggressive, and got his heart in it. Everything I've seen, you know, sometimes he gets a little controversial in some areas, but
I mean,
you know, that's
part of the game,
what
right?
we do.
Yeah.
Leadership role. Sometimes you make decisions that you think are in the best interest, but maybe somebody else doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
So it becomes controversial. But leadership is making those kind of decisions. And
Those are tough decisions.
Sometimes they're
yeah.
not right, or not 100% on, but you know, at least he's somebody who will make decisions.
But this is why we have contracts, right? And I like to even point out, even at my job, I work at T-Force, you'll have some drivers saying, well, it shouldn't be like that. Why don't we do it this way? We have a contract. And a contract, and this goes to every union member, read your contract, know your contract. Your contract is only as good as if you use it. But you can't say, well, you know what, next week I feel this way, so let's change it. That's not a contract, guys. And do what's right for yourself and for your brother. You know what I mean? Don't just think of yourself. That's what union's all about, togetherness, brotherhood, you know? And this is why I say, some members, they don't want to read their contract, and they'll come with some crazy questions to our business agent. Well, why can't I take that shift? Well, brother, you're not in the seniority. You're not in the top list of that seniority. We must abide by the rules. Even if it doesn't fit Ray Corona, I still have to abide by my contract. So again, with all you members, read your contract. Pick up your book. You can come to your local and pick up your contract, read a little bit. Because again, we're only strong as the members are. Am I right, Randy?
Yeah, and you pointed out something important. One of the basic things that Teamsters and other labor unions try to do is establish seniority over preferential treatment of people. And that's one of the early days, one of the toughest things to do. And it's still a battle of getting preferential jobs assigned by seniority. And some people complain because, if seniority is the kind of thing, either you have it, which is great, or you don't.
You don't have it.
And sometimes if you don't have it, you don't have a good feeling because you don't have it, then the other person has more seniority.
But you'll get there soon. You'll get there.
But seniority eliminates the game playing, racial bias.
Yes.
It's simply seniority. And the senior person should get whatever's preferential.
Yes.
And sometimes that's hard to attain, but we fight for that all the time. Anything that we think seniority should apply, we try to get that. Eliminates,
Amen.
The assignment of work, assignment of bids in the trucking industry by seniority. In almost every job situation in all the companies we represent, we try to make seniority the guiding force for employers to not be able to play games,
play favorites,
jack our folks around.
Play favorites, discriminate. I worked for Consolidated Freightway in '92. Mind you, I walked right out of prison. My first job was truck driving, got my Class A, got Consolidated Freightway. Worked there 13 years, guys. I went up real good on the seniority list, and then the company closed the doors. It wasn't the union's fault. The company greed, man. They literally took us to Knott's Berry Farm the day prior. Remember Labor Day? They took us to Labor, and then come out after we spend all our hard-earned money. Hey, don't come to work Monday or Tuesday. The company closed the doors. Anyways, I had to start all over, guys. I went to T-Force. It wasn't T-Force then. It was I forget. Before they overnight. Bro, I had no seniority. I had youngsters below me saying, hey, bro, that's my truck. I go, wait, bro, I got the truck first. But I had to tell myself, it goes by seniority. But look at me now. I have seniority. I'm out of 225, I'm 120 on the seniority. I got seniority, guys. You will get there sooner or later, guys. Stick in there. And again, I have a pension. I have benefits. I have protection. Again, I got fired, whether you think it was my fault or not. I got fired and got my job back, guys. How many people could say, just that right there? I pay $52 a month in union dues. A lawyer that would charge that in a minute, if not more. And you know what I mean? And my business agent was there on the spot every day fighting for me, not to mention the local. And this is why I say, union is just an awesome feeling. If some of you people say, well, how do I get a union job? Apply at, at truck driving. I'm a truck driver, so I don't know the other ones, but apply at these warehouses, apply at and it'll say there, it's union. Yep. It's union. And you know what? That's how you get in, guys. You don't come to the local and say, hey, I want a job. It doesn't work like that. You apply at the companies, ABF, T-Force, UPS, all these trucking companies, these warehouses. My son Andrew works at Stater Brother Warehouse, makes great money, got a pension. He is so blessed. My son Adrian, the ex-fighter, UPS, he became a Class A truck driver. He is so blessed. And this is why I say, guys, I personally think Local 63 is the baddest, but Teamsters in general are just a solid group, guys. And you know what? I'm so blessed to have Randy on. And before we close, Randy, I just want to ask you, who's your best friend? Make sure you say your wife.
The best fighter?
Your best friend.
Oh, my best friend. Over the years, I have a bunch of people that I say are best friends. I don't have a particular one that I can say this guy is my best friend. I can only say one time in my life, there was one person that I was extremely close to this day. He passed away, Bob Molina.
Oh, yeah.
He
yeah.
was my
I know
best
Mr.
friend.
Molina. I met him a
I
few
never
times.
had to worry about, we were in bars drinking or, you know.
He had
there
your
was-
back, huh?
You know, always had my back, and I had his because we had that bond. He was my best friend. He's the one buried in our private Teamster park, and I still go out and talk to him once in a while. And
So
he
that probably-
don't talk back anymore.
Yeah.
But he was my closest friend. He loved, you know, he taught me a lot about compassion that a person should have. He used to tell me once, he says, I can tell a lot about people in our business when they say my members, my local versus our. He said that one word will tell you what they're about when they say my. Nothing is my, it's ours, theirs, it belongs to the membership. And I never forgot that. And but it's an honor for me to be here. You know, I have some very fond memories of being associated with youth boxing. Proud to be here with the Hall of Famer in the referee category, and associated with Ben Lira, who's a coach in the California.
Like a father to me, too.
In fact, one of my I used to take my grandkids to some of the youth boxing stuff, and one girl tried, Mariana Juarez, I think. My grandson fell in love with her because she's a beautiful girl. You'd never guessed that she was a champion.
Yeah.
You know, she was but beautiful young lady. And I took my wife with Ben, and you might have been there, to a boxing Hall of Fame event in Los Angeles, where we had the opportunity to sit close to Muhammad Ali.
Wow.
And those were in his difficult years, but he was there with his lifetime friend. They used to go back and forth. I don't know if you were at that event or not. It was a restaurant in LA.
Yes.
And my wife went over and got Muhammad Ali to sign this little miniature set of gloves.
Yeah.
And she still has those. And I try to steal them from her, but she treasures that. You know, to see Muhammad Ali and the condition he was in those later years, it was heartbreaking.
It really was.
But he still had a great sense of humor.
Great sense of humor.
He may not have been able to communicate well, but those were touching moments for me. For boxing, I think of the Olympic Auditorium and Eileen Eaton and all the things that used to, the camaraderie with the folks. I was going to college down there, LA Trade Tech, so we'd sneak out and go
right across the street.
Just down the street, go over to the Olympic Auditorium and watch the fight. Sometimes the fights were best in the audience because there was always a distraction. There was one guy who used to bring a beautiful blonde and walk down the aisle. He always sat there. I think they paid him to do that. But then you'd see the camera break away from the fights because there was a brawl up in the balcony. So that was just exciting, you know. It was, But at the end of the day, everybody walked out friends because they all had a great appreciation.
Just licked your wounds and everybody
young
was
fighters.
good.
Usually the preliminary bouts were the best.
Yes.
The amateurs, you know, trying to work their way up, and you see young people trying hard. Some just aren't capable. They don't have the skills or the dedication, and others that go forward. I was trying to remember, they call him the Great White, Jerry Quarry.
Jerry Quarry, oh my God.
You know,
poor, on a sad note, he died real ugly. I mean, he was just, he might have had dementia by now, but he couldn't even eat right. But remember when he fought Muhammad Ali? I mean, this guy, you had to hit him with a sledgehammer, bro. I mean, he was a tough cookie. He had two other brothers too, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Corey brothers. Tough guys, man. Tough. You couldn't, that's tough, bro. You wouldn't want to tangle with the Corey brothers, man.
Yeah, we used to have a hiring hall in Los Angeles for the freight industry, or people that would get day work. And we don't have it anymore because most of the freight companies have closed. But we used to have a lot of fighters that were working their way up that actually worked down there for regular income. That was one particular fighter who fought probably everybody I can imagine. He was the stepping stone, Scrap Iron Johnson.
Oh, okay.
And he was, he was probably up like number 10 or something at one time.
Yeah.
But he was the guy you had to beat.
Yeah, you had to pass
last,
him.
because he'd knock you down. And you'd know if you were a scrap iron, but he worked out of the hiring hall for a long time. A lot of interesting folks in the boxing industry, and I still have a great appreciation. It's an honor for me to be here and speak out to folks that are, they're watching and they're predominantly have a great interest in the boxing. The third man in the ring, I think, has brought a lot of attention to be able to interact with some of the past great fighters and personalities that I love the one interesting with my name escapes me right now. It's got the taco place in LA.
The taco place.
Is it
Taco Nozzle?
Huh?
Taco Nozzle?
No. God, I can't think of it. He's in movies all the time.
Oh, Danny Trejo.
Yeah,
Danny Trejo.
Who was a boxer at one time.
Yeah, in San Quentin.
Yeah, I saw that and I had no idea he was a boxer.
Yeah, San Quentin, he was a boxer.
Yeah, and he still looked like he handled himself. But
Yeah.
he was just in a movie the other day that came out just a couple of years
Same
ago.
age as you. He's same age as you. Yeah. I went to his birthday party, Danny Trejo. Good guy, man. So yeah, Randy, I appreciate you coming in. I thank you for your time. I thank you for
It's my
being an
honor.
awesome leader.
It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate all of you who are watching. And it's a great show. Ray really delves into some interesting areas, and have an opportunity to talk a little bit about the Teamsters and the opportunity we have to represent members and do something good for them and their families.
That's right.
And it's a great honor for me to have that opportunity the last 45 years. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate you. God bless.
Both ways, man. Love you, brother.
Love you, man. God bless, guys.